Real quick before the video begins, I wanted to let you know that this video turned out to be much longer than anticipated, which is something I hope doesn't become a running joke on this channel. But because this was originally meant to be a shorter video, I decided to instead split it into two parts. This first video will be more of a general review, touching on stuff like characters, animation, soundtrack, the story, stuff like that, and not including spoilers. The second video will dive more into spoilers and go into more personal, subjective opinions that I have on the show, and go a little bit more into depth on the themes and messages that the show conveys. So with all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Over 70% of the Earth's surface is water, and hidden in the seas of our planet lies one of the most vast and diverse ecosystems known to us. A place that seems otherworldly yet familiar. A plain of pure blue filled with creatures of all shapes and sizes gently gliding by. That mysterious yet inviting allure, as your mind is witness to thoughts of myriad colors that are equally as weightless as they are seemingly as massive as the universe. A place where all things are equal, where peace can be found within the waves and rising along the white sands. Hello and welcome everyone to a review on the Aquatope on white sand. This is a coming-of-age story set in a small aquarium in Okinawa about dreams, loss, adulthood, and, most importantly, the love of the ocean and the celebration of life on Earth. This has become one of my favorite shows of recent memory, and it's had a lot more emotional resonance with me than I thought it would. Over the course of this review, I'll be discussing these topics and more from my perspective, so that hopefully you can take what I've talked about here and form your own opinion on the show. With all that said, this is my review on the Aquatope on white sand. Alright, so how this is going to work. This first part of the review is going to include no spoilers. It's mostly just going to be a general overview of things like the premise, themes, characters, and production, these types of things that you might want to know before you get into the show that might convince you to watch it, and if you already have watched it, hopefully reaffirming the things that you like about it. The second part of the review is going to include spoilers, just so I can go a little bit more in depth on a few small things and give some more explanation to my overall thoughts and feelings on the show. And all of my personal thoughts about the show in its entirety will come with the second part of the review, where I'll be discussing the themes, symbolisms, and implications that the show conveys. First up, a brief synopsis. Fuka Miyazawa has just lost her job as an idol, which was her childhood dream growing up, and having worked in the industry for many years, she now finds herself at a crossroads in life, not exactly wanting to go home, but also not exactly sure where to go next. On a whim, she decides to go to Okinawa. There she meets Kukuru Misakino, the acting summer director of Gama Gama Aquarium, who is eventually convinced to let Fuka start working at the aquarium, and thus begins their story of family, accepting loss, and finding hope in the ruins of two damaged dreams. As for our two titular characters, Kukuru is an optimistic, energetic fish enthusiast who is absolutely determined to protect her dream, her friends, and marine life. When she's in a good mood and has a goal to follow, she's incredibly hardworking, always looking out for others, and always eager to get her work done. Though she is prone to getting frustrated at others when things go awry, including Fuka, but this frustration is less so out of malice and more so out of care, because she very much so loves other living beings, like her friends and family, and of course the various marine life that she watches over at Gama Gama. In fact, she loves marine life to the point that she wrote a squid journal instead of doing her math homework. But it's also very easy to see that she is definitely balancing a lot of emotional baggage inside. And as the show progresses, we not only get a better idea of what she's struggling with, but also a better look into the reasons why she does what she does. Our former idol Fuka is kind of the opposite of Kukuru's energetic personality. She is caring to a fault, rarely gets mad at others, occasionally clumsy, but regardless, still incredibly hardworking and determined. She's not the person to make any noise or put up a fuss because of her lost job as an idol. Instead, she's the type to encourage the next generations to carry on in what she couldn't. In fact, one of her main motivations for staying at Gama Gama is in order to support Kukuru's dream instead of her own. And that's something we're going to see more as the show progresses. We do see pretty early on that she has some trouble letting go of the past, and considering all the events that have led up to this point, we'll have to see how she juggles these thoughts as the show progresses. The supporting cast is also great in their own individual ways, They're always a joy to watch, interact with one another, and each of them have their own backstories that have roots in Gamma Gamma, where they all convene together. Okay, now onto the technical stuff, which, as I've said before, is not my specialty. So as much as I want to keep this objective, this is just from the perspective of one person, so take this all with a pinch of salt. With that said, the animation is gorgeous. Everything from the environments, to the colors, to the close-ups, to the animation, very smooth, very beautiful, very realistic. There isn't really anything in the show visually that stands out as being subpar. Everything is very, very beautiful and engaging. You can go and watch the entire first episode on YouTube in high definition, and that in and of itself should show exactly how gorgeous the show looks. And yes, there is CGI included, but it's never jarring. It's very well blended. The fish in the tanks are probably the most common use of it, but they're very realistically animated, they're very colorful, they're very smooth. It's really like watching an actual aquarium. They're not at all poorly rendered. They're not at all outstanding for being weird to look at and off-putting. And all of this just adds to the spectacle of the show, of the ocean, of the marine life, of these characters. And we get to see the world through Kukuru's optimistic eyes that add animation and beauty and color to everything around her. Now, I'm not going to say that the CGI is perfect, and for the eagle-eyed view, it's not that difficult to notice it compared to the rest of the 2D animation. But it is still very good regardless, and like I said, it's not jarring. Similarly, while the animation isn't always amazing cinematic level quality for the entire show, it is consistent, and I think that's the most important thing. Because there will be cases where you might have a show that has good animation at the start, but then as the episodes go on, it might dip in quality, and each episode kind of becomes a 50-50 whether the animation is going to be good or not. This show is not the case. It has consistently good and appealing animation. Now, for the most part, the show is very realistic. It's primarily just a slice of life coming of age story, but there are some very special moments of fantasy, and the way they're put together adds just enough difference to where it feels fantastical, it feels dreamlike, and they do a very wonderful job of making it stand out while also making it feel like it's still part of the same universe. And another reason for this is the amazing soundtrack. It has a wonderful range of diversity that can cover the homey, comfortable energy of Kukuru and Gamma Gamma, and it captures the tropical beauty of Okinawa and its waters, and it can also be incredibly poignant and raw when it needs to be. Over time, I've grown more susceptible to my emotions, and this is one of those soundtracks that hits particularly hard in my adult life. I think the composer and everyone else who worked on the soundtrack did a fantastic job of bringing out the emotion of the show, from the happy, energetic sunlight on the beach to the tender interpersonal moments that these characters experience through the challenges of life. And I would strongly recommend that even if you don't give the show a watch, give the soundtrack a try. I think you'll find something that you like. So my general thoughts without spoilers are as follows. Kukuru and Fuka follow a beautiful story about dreams and maturity and coming of age, growing out of childhood, growing out of whatever fantastical ideals you might hold as a child, and coming to face the adult world as hard as it can be. This will hit especially hard for those of us who have or are currently going through adolescence and are having to abandon those childhood dreams. But at the same time, it highlights the wonders of marine life and nature through endearing us to Kukuru and her love for the ocean and marine life. In that sense, it doubles as both a spectacle to experience and also a bit of a warm message reminding us of how beautiful the world and our oceans are, about the wonderful ecosystems underneath the surface of the water, a lot of which we still don't even know about yet. And that curiosity, that wonder, that beauty that Kukuru is trying to protect will rub off on you, as it has on me. Now, I will fully admit to being biased, because I really like this show, so if I was to nitpick at some things that I think are sticking out as somewhat disappointing, at times it feels like some of the characters don't get a whole lot of development, and around the middle point of the second core, it does kind of feel like there is a bit of filler. I will discuss these a little bit more in the spoiler section, but for those of you who want to go and watch this show spoiler free, just Keep these in mind, don't really pay them too much attention. And along with those tiny nitpicks, I suppose you might not enjoy the show that much if you're the fan of more fast-paced, action-orientated shows. But in case it's not obvious right now, I do think that if you were going to watch a slower-paced show, this one would be a good one to start with. So without going too far into spoilers, my recommendation is to definitely give this show a watch. If you would like to hear more of my thoughts on the show, which include spoilers, but also talks more about the themes, messages, and goes more into depth on the implications of the series, go check out the second video on this that will be coming out shortly after the first. But again, that video is going to include spoilers, so if you would like to go into the show blind, which is what I recommend, go watch the show first and then come back. With all that said, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it helps you to make a decision on whether to watch the show or not. And if you do watch the show, I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, take care.